Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this Thursday. In this video, we're going to be doing a preview look at the up and coming full moon in the sign of Aries. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, hang out for a while, click the subscription button below and make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday using tarot and astrology to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. Now I'm excited to be back. Obviously today we're going to be exploring this extra powerful full moon in the sign of Aries, which will be taking place on October 6th, 2025. Now this one is a fiery transformative lunation. It's all about bold releases and self-assertion in this sign. And if you're ready to dive in with me today, I'm excited to be here. Grab your chart. Let's take a look at where this is going to be taking place. And I'm going to hopefully be able to kind of illuminate what this full moon in Aries really means for you, as well as the collective. And as always, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and like this video. Consider sharing on socials. Drop me a comment below and let me know. Are you somebody who has an Aries sun, moon, or rising? Are you feeling the heat? And equally, just let me know what happens with this lunation because, well, it's a big one because this was seeded in March's solar eclipse in Aries. So let's go ahead and dive right in. We're going to first start off by talking a little bit about what a full moon is. So astrologically, we have a full moon every month. This is when the sun and the moon are in exact opposition to one another. And the moon is going to be fully illuminated by the sun's light. So astrologically, this symbolizes a period of culmination, major revelations, and emotional peaks. Now, they are bringing things to a head essentially under this full moon, and it's going to be really highlighting what needs to be released or completed in our lives. So take a look at where Aries is in your chart. That's where the action is going to be. I don't think you guys can miss it, especially since we've had Saturn and Neptune in this sign earlier this year. We have Neptune currently retrograde in the last degree of Aries. And this was, like I said, it was seeded during a solar eclipse that we had in March 2025. I believe that was around 9 degrees. So not only are we seeing some of the opposition that's been kind of coming up, leading up to this full moon at the beginning of Libra season, but now we're going to have this particular area that's going to be highlighted. Now, this is going to be a time where obviously there will be heightened energy, there can be heightened emotions, and hidden emotions usually start to kind of surface under a full moon, and we see some kind of closure or some kind of breakthrough in cycles that began 6 months ago. So you're going to have to put on your thinking caps and think about where you were in the spring of this year. But what you do need to know is that full moons impact everybody, but it's going to hit those of you guys who have any astrological placements between 13 and 15 degrees of Aries the hardest. So if you have a sun, moon, rising, or personal planet, maybe even a node around these degrees, this is going to be very personal for you. However, if you happen to have anything around 13 to 15 degrees of the other cardinal signs like Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, you guys are feeling the effects of this big time. So you're going to be seeing this full moon taking place in an angular part of your chart, which makes life get a little loud. The other fire signs I think are going to kind of dig this one, especially my Sag and my Leo risings, because obviously this is friendly for you. But we'll see what it kind of means for all 12 signs as we get into it. But for right now, you just need to know if you have any planets around that 13 to 15 degrees of Aries, it's going to be impacting you in a big way. Now in astrology, Aries is the very first sign of the Zodiac. It is cardinal fire, and this is a sign that is ruled by Mars. So it's all about initiating things. It's about courage, independence, and it's raw energy, right? So being that it's the first sign of the Zodiac ruled by Mars, it embodies this I am kind of energy. Aries is a sign that's known for pioneering, energies. It's about impulse and it's about direct motion. So some of the themes of this full moon is going to be about reclaiming your personal power, confronting identity issues, and releasing anger or frustration. Learning how to kind of balance self-focus with relationships with the opposition to the sun in Libra. And obviously, it's all about letting go of what no longer serves our authentic self, sparking bravery, as well as starting something new. Now, I think this is significant for a number of reasons. Obviously, this will be the first lunation that we're going to see after the fall eclipses that we just kind of completed and concluded. But it still has that kind of eclipsey energy because of that connection to the solar eclipse we had earlier this year. So on March 29th, 2025, we saw a solar eclipse in Aries. This was the last solar eclipse that was a part of the Aries Libra eclipses that have taken place over the last 2 years. Recently, we have now moved into having new nodal eclipses that are taking place in Virgo and also in the sign of Pisces. But if you think about some of the seeds that were planted earlier this year, revolving around the area of Aries in your chart, but more specifically self-expression themes, leadership themes, and anything that's been connected to personal reinvention. Now, eclipses accelerate growth, and this full moon is going to kind of act like a culmination or harvest of what intentions you seeded 6 months ago during that eclipse cycle. So it can likely bring major revelations or resolutions to some of those eclipse themes. Personally, I think it could manifest as intensified calls for independence or identity shifts that are really echoing some of the eclipse's intentions that we had earlier this year. Now, the Sabian symbol I'm going to read for you guys is going to be for 15 degrees of Aries, and this is known as an Indian weaving a blanket. For those of you guys who aren't familiar with the Sabian symbols, it's a book of 360 degrees of the Zodiac that's going to give you a little bit more context and some psychic insights. If you guys want to pick up a copy, click the links in the description below. I have my book list, and you guys can check out all the books and the tarot cards that I use on this channel. Now, Aries 15, an Indian weaving a blanket. The keyword is diligence. The theme is active participation. The symbol speaks to pride and personal fulfillment as achieved through creative self-expression. The image of an Indian weaving a blanket focuses on preservation of cultural values and traditions through art. At the same time, it depicts pleasure and satisfaction an individual can experience through meeting the needs of others. The symbol is similar to the meaning of the Eight of Pentacles in the Rider-Waite deck that expresses the pride of a skilled craftsman who is able to artistically express himself and his values through his work in some tangible manner, and at the same time produce goods that meet a basic need in human society. It symbolizes the weaver creating something that will provide protection from the elements as well as express his skills as an artist. The figure of the weaver also reflects patience and concentration, as such used in this symbolism, and the stability and peace of mind that an individual can achieve through being an active and contributing member of society that sustains him. In modern terms, it's called being a part of the process. At its highest, symbol represents self-fulfillment and enjoyment through opportunities to use personal skills and talents for the benefits of others. Watch for insecurity and willingness to live a dull and predictable life rather than face the uncertainties of commitment. The accent is on ethnicity, pride in workmanship, and creative self-expression. This is a good time for visiting museums, taking an art class, diving into the history and traditions of different cultures, or working on your own personal project. Your greatest advantage lies in putting your talents to practical use for the benefit of others. Go for the conventional or traditional rather than innovative or fancy. Fill a need and warm a heart. Guard against oversensitivity and letting your work become convenient and excuse for avoiding social relationships and involvement. Stepping stones are pride, conscientiousness, creativity, skill, artistry, craftsmanship, productivity, patience, concentration, work, and tradition. So when we think about this particular degree that's getting kind of activated, I feel like it's more or less about crafting your own reality, right? And that's been such a theme, I think, with Saturn and Neptune having been in Aries this year. It's about really kind of integrating experiences into a more productive, beautiful whole and honoring tradition while creating something that's unique. So if we apply it to the full moon, it's going to be suggesting weaving together past wounds, obviously with Chiron and Aries, and current passions into the tapestry of self-empowerment. So it's about releasing fragmented identities into something that's like a more cohesive sense of self. And energetically, it's about building your inner fire for warmth and security during life's transitions. So for this lunation, it's really encouraging mindful release, and it's turning emotional intensity into creative protection. Now, it is going to be happening, obviously, at 14 degrees. 14 degrees is a degree that is associated with Taurus. It is connected in degree astrology to second house things. So personal finances, money, banks, our personal investments, and that's who we're banking with, what we value, what we're trading, what we're giving, what we're losing. And we're going to talk a lot about Mars, but Mars is the ruler of this particular lunation, and it is in its domicile in one of its home signs, Scorpio. And Scorpio deals with debt, and it also deals with taxes and expenses. And Mars is sitting at 10 degrees. So it's definitely going to be major headlines revolving around, debt-related issues, things connecting to, obviously, I'm an American, so here in the United States, I think issues with our debt, and that it's becoming like, something that is not sustainable in the long term. So we're going to hear topics revolving around, making changes with, I think, the laws and regulations connecting to borrowing and lending, things that are about kind of visiting, past issues that have happened with banking bailouts, things that are connected to interest rates, and obviously some volatility with the market can be something that can kind of come up around the time of this full moon. But usually when we see full moons, we see kind of peaks. Anyway, know that all of these Taurus things, whether it's food, money, the earth, our own personal possessions, and our relationship to other people, and what we value, what we want to hold on to, what we want to preserve, or what we're cutting or detoxing out of our life is definitely going to be a theme. Now, for world predictions, a full moon in Aries brings the heat, right? This is a sign that deals with military. It's connected to war. It deals with, Martian energies, so men and pioneering energies, being the first, right? And sometimes being a little combative in the process is one of the themes that we kind of see. The moons now, anytime when the moon is at a full moon, or if it's a solar eclipse, a new moon, we're always going to be looking at Jupiter. And Jupiter is in the sign of Cancer right now. So we will see just after the new moon, the day after, it's going to hit Chiron and it's going to square Jupiter. So it's coming into that square, which is going to make emotions highlighted. And it's going to revolve around the individual emotions, maybe some of the pain we're working through. It could be physical, it could be emotional. It could be also where we're feeling like emotionally, we're just kind of ready to pop because of these growing pains that are going on at home, whether that's in our home country, if that's with our roommates, if that's in regards to the housing market, expansions that are happening in the family, and where we are really feeling like we need to kind of take the lead and initiate some of this necessary change. For many of us, it is also going to represent the frustration that's going on with the laws in our countries, because Jupiter deals with laws. But as a world kind of overview, this full moon is very fiery amongst, I think, some of the kind of harsher squares and aspects that we're going to be seeing. It's definitely going to be highlighting and spotlighting global conflicts, especially in leadership or independent movements. And it's got this assertive energy, and it's trying to kind of find the diplomacy through the sun in Libra. But we know with the sun in this sign, it is a bit debilitated, because sometimes the sun can lose its ego or its like energy or identity in being wrapped up in who we support, who we are partnered with. So that could mean in a, kind of micro sense, we're really kind of seeing that we're reacting to things very strongly and emotionally based off of what other people are doing, right? Based off of what our clients are doing, our partners, our friends. We can be feeling very emotional and very feisty, and be feeling like it's getting to a point in certain relationships where we're going, I don't know if I can continue to maintain this relationship. Some of us might feel like we want to kind of tip the balance of the scales with this Aries moon and be very raw and transformative with Mars in Scorpio. I think for me, I've been looking at this kind of going, well, having had Saturn and Neptune in Aries recently, it's been a lot of having to take a good hard look at ourselves individually. And what do we believe in? Where are our boundaries? What are our limits? Where are we not very self-aware? And also this can represent where we are kind of starting to reflect a little bit more with Saturn and Neptune retrograde on just how far we've come over the last 6 months. And some realizations that we have made. And for some of us, we're kind of in this quiet retreat mode where we don't want to upset the apple cart. For others, we have realized the price of, playing it safe or not wanting to disrupt relationships has actually materialized as bigger problems, right? So that's the square to Jupiter. So some of us might feel like a moral or an ethical obligation to, politely exit certain relationships if we feel like it's not in balance, if we cannot align ourselves with certain people who may not necessarily be supporting the person we're becoming, we're going to see tensions rise. So, I think that we'll see power struggles, obviously, that are going to come up, primarily because Mercury, is also in a square to Pluto. And this could fuel major, revelations in policies or tech in particular. I think it's going to be about data and surveillance and, freedom of communication, and where we're starting to see developments in tech that actually could be infringing on our privacy. And we're also going to see healing themes that are going to come up too, because the moon is approaching a conjunction to Chiron in Aries, which is retrograde. And that's going to be highlighting collective wounds around identity. So that could mean where individuals are feeling iced out. We could be taking a look at veterans' health. We could be looking also at, where people have actually gone through a lot of emotional and psychological kind of injuries in the process of some of these kind of swings that have been happening with diplomacy and relationships. We can also see collective wounds revolving around social justice or refugee crises. Now, Venus will be conjunct the South Node in Virgo, and this is going to be something to watch, because not only is she debilitated in this sign, but that kind of dance that we're doing with the South Node really talks a lot about releasing outdated values in relationships, and where relationship stuff is just, whether it's the nitpicking or, relationship patterns that are not healthy. It can also be showing us where some people are having some major changes with their job, or they're not feeling fulfilled in their job, or they're in positions where they're working too much, or there could be some relational issues in the workplace. But we may also see that there's going to be some, outdated values in economies or alliances that are leading to financial recalibration in a very big way. So we've seen a lot of job numbers change. We're seeing a lot of people that are leaving their jobs because they're not happy. We're also seeing that some people are returning back to their old jobs. And I really feel like this is giving us an opportunity to have some significant kind of purge. Okay, it doesn't feel good, but it is happening, and Venus is at a 21, so it's going to be about some major changes revolving around international relationships. 21 is a Sag degree, as well as changes that are going on in, I think, major companies that are having to either issue layoffs, or they're having to actually cut ties and let certain employees go. Now, we will see that there is going to be, some impulsive actions that can kind of come up. And a lot of that's because Aries is instinctually, act fast, think later. But also because we are going to be seeing that Mars is in Scorpio, which thankfully is a little bit more strategic. It does plan, it does recognize where it needs to kind of move in a fashion where it's behind the scenes a little bit, and it's strategic when it comes to getting what it wants. It's not as combative as Aries energy is kind of outright in your face. With this, we're going to be seeing that the impulsive actions are also as a result of the fact that the moon is going to be in conjunct and quincunx Mars. So some of us are going to go, that's it, I've had enough, I'm cutting this off. And others are going to find that we have this impulse that's going to come up, and we're going to go, hold on a second, let's really think about the actions and the financial, the emotional, the physical repercussions of, saying something suddenly or kind of pulling the rug on something suddenly. So we do want to watch out for that. But I do think that it can provide some real significant breakthroughs. And a lot of that is because Mercury is going to be forming a yod to Neptune, as well as Uranus and Gemini. And so I talked about this a lot, as I did the Mars in Scorpio video. I said, look, Mars is going to go in Scorpio. There's going to be some kind of scandal, but some people may not see it, or it's going to get washed out by other news cycles. We're going to see this again. And this go around, Mercury is important because it is connected to the South Node. So it can be about retracing our steps in terms of things that we've done in the past. Now there's new information surfacing. It's also about digging and purging and listening to kind of our intuition, and trying to kind of surface all of the gunk that's going on, that's being brought up from the underworld. So crime, corruption, things that are kind of swept under the rug are going to be a little bit harder to kind of hide during this particular time, because now we've got a lot of people, Mercury can be people who are independent journalists. It could also be people who are working for major news networks. It can be showing where certain individuals are actually getting outed out of the media, and how, funding is being pulled, or, shows are being pulled, not necessarily because of lack of engagement. It's going to be more about the fact that there are people who are not agreeing with narratives. So we're going to hear a lot more about some of these news anchors and people who have late night shows that are being pulled because of the financial implications of people getting angry and reacting to some of the stuff that's being said on, on TV. Now, I do think that overall, this can be good for breakthroughs. There could be breakthrough information or secrets or things that are exposed that make us recognize and realize, whoa, this is not okay. And I needed to know this information, or people are going to be potentially kind of showing their true colors. After all, Libra can represent the mask that we kind of wear when we're trying to connect with other people versus Aries, which is a little bit more like raw and independent. And so I do think that we are going to be seeing the contrast naturally because it's a full moon, but even more importantly, because Mercury and Mars going through the 8th house to this particular full moon is showing us that, in order to be in relationships, we have to be willing to merge. We have to work together. We have to invest together. We have to investigate together. We have to get to the bottom of things and really look at both the financial and the psychological implications of being a team. So that's going to be a big theme. And overall, I really see this as a period of bold collective kind of reassessment that's going on, possibly leading to, obviously an escalation in tensions in international relations. But also in some cases, it can be good exposure that's really kind of providing us breakthroughs to see just exactly who we should be kind of aligning ourselves with or, be willing to kind of partner with in some sense. On an individual level, very different. Obviously, you're going to have to look at where Aries is in your chart and see, what's kind of going on. But like I said, this is a part of a storyline that goes back to not only spring of this year, but, 2 years prior. You could go back to the first eclipses that were happening in Aries, which I believe was like either in 22 or 23, where we were seeing eclipses that were happening in this particular sign. Now, on an individual level, maybe this full moon is going to be illuminating for you your sense of self, right? Doesn't matter where Aries is in your chart. Aries is going to represent where you personally initiate something. And this is really showing you where, maybe it's urging you to release self-doubt. Maybe it's urging you to release codependency or to finally deal with some kind of suppressed or pent-up anger or frustration. It's likely that some of us, if we channel this the right way, might feel a surge in motivation to assert boundaries and pursue our passions. We just have to watch for that impulsivity that can come through, obviously, with the full moon. I do think a theme is going to be about healing old wounds because Chiron is in the same sign, and it's going to be asking us to kind of show up with a sense of emotional vulnerability. Doing so and addressing those wounds can actually lead to greater authenticity on a personal level. Yes, relationships can test our independence, but it's all about finding that harmony and balance together. To best work with this full moon, I would say you're really going to want to be getting real with yourself. Obviously, with both Mercury and Mars being in Scorpio, themes like self-reflection, psychological analysis, working with therapists, being willing to kind of ask the hard questions, going deep and focusing on matters of merger, whether that's financial or that could be intimate matters. That can also be, kind of healing old trauma and old wounds that can be coming up. Because really what it's saying is it's time to kind of release that. A good ritual I would recommend is anything that deals with fire. So if you want to write down what you're wanting to release, right, you could write it down and then obviously in a fire safe spot, or, maybe you're striking a match and you're burning it and you're letting that go and you're kind of releasing that into the cosmos. So obviously, Aries is a Martian sign, so it also likes physical activities. So exercise or dance can be great to channel this energy. Any like hot yogas or anything connecting to steam. Obviously, Mars is the ruler, but it's in a water sign. So purging, detoxification, cleansing, clearing out gunk or stuff from our digestive tract or our bowels, and themes that are also connected to regeneration, as well as like anti-aging or purification is also a great way to kind of connect with this energy. Maybe meditate on self-love and affirmations that are about inspiring and feeling confident in your own skin. I also think that this can be beneficial to set intentions for bold new starts. Just avoid rash decisions. Instead, use the opposition to the Libra sun for balanced reflection. If you like to ritualize things during the full moons, and if you happen to be like a crystal hound, for Aries, I really like working with bloodstone. I think it's great for courage and grounding. I really like carnelian for Aries energy too. I'm an Aries moon. I love carnelian. I find that when I wear it, I go a little sassy. But if you're somebody who's lacking that sense of confidence, or maybe you're afraid to kind of come to terms with certain emotional energies, this can be a wonderful stone to kind of work with that's going to give you more of that boost and that willingness to kind of deal with some of the problems head on. You can also work with ruby for passion or vitality, or, I also like anything connecting to iron. So if you happen to have like some of those clear quartz with like iron clusters, that's also really good for amplifying the energy because iron is associated with Aries. Now, if you want to work with herbs, I like to use nettle for Aries because it's great for protection. I also think that anything spicy would be good. So like cayenne for fiery energy. You can even work with like cinnamon. You can work with clove, ginger, garlic, or rosemary can be really beneficial because it's going to be excellent for having clarity, and you can infuse that into your food, or you can put it in tea or work with it in baths. So maybe consider a way to kind of bring all of these elements in, but I would definitely be working with fire. I'd definitely be working with water. I think that that's going to be really powerful for some of this kind of Aries / Mars and Scorpio type of vibes. Especially for like an Aries full moon, I would say like doing some yoga, maybe like incorporating the warrior pose can be really great. And having some of those affirmations like I am strong or I am sovereign can really kind of boost that momentum and feeling more confident and also kind of fired up during this full moon. Maybe you decide to create a personal altar with like red candles or symbols of power and strength. Whatever you decide to do, it's choose your own adventure. Obviously, Aries means you should do it your own kind of way. So if we break down the aspects, obviously, like I said, the full moon is always going to be with the sun in opposition to the moon, and it creates that polarity. And the opposition is where we have to kind of deal with or confront something. So if you think back to what's happened over the last 6 months, there has been a storyline in Aries between eclipses, retrogrades, Saturn, Neptune, all going into that house. So now you're going to see, okay, this is kind of like that check-in point to see how you're actually navigating with some of the intentions that you set back then. Now, this is also, obviously bringing up, I think, tension when it comes to who you are compared to other people. So there's going to be this push that's going to come up with the full moon for personal freedom and relational harmony and amid relational disharmonies. And this is about encouraging release in imbalanced partnerships, believe it or not, and the willingness to kind of say, okay, now is the time, I'm going to go and I'm going to do this. Probably the strongest aspect, because off the bat, you don't really see a lot of aspects with this moon. Like the moon's not really making any exact, tight squares to any outer planets. It's not making any trines to any outer planets. It's making very subtle aspects to things, but you have to kind of spot it. And probably the biggest thing per degree, because it's about 4 degrees off, is the moon is making an inconjunct or a quincunx to Mars, which I think is a big deal since Mars is the ruler of this lunation. So an inconjunct or a quincunx is that awkward kind of angle where it creates a need for adjustment. And it's about kind of balancing out the emotional impulses of the moon in Aries with the intense actions of Mars in Scorpio. Now, since Mars rules the moon, it's kind of like the driver is out of sync. I think this is going to bring up frustration in kind of pursuing desires and hidden aggressions that might be surfacing, or needing to realign passion with intuition, because Scorpio is a very intuitive sign. So it means that we really need to really exercise a sense of caution when handling power dynamics to avoid any self-sabotage, because we might find that we're emotionally reacting to things, we're afraid of fear, we're afraid of change, we're afraid of vulnerability, and that can kind of trigger certain individuals. Now, the moon is also coming into a conjunction. It's 11 degrees, so it's too wide, but you will see this the next day as the moon is coming into conjunction with Chiron, and that's building towards this merger with the wounded healer, who is retrograde in Aries at a Aries degree, so it's about the self, and it's highlighting where we need to really look at some of our own flaws, some of our own issues that we haven't dealt with. We need to look at our identity wounds. We have to look at actual illness-related issues. In particular, Aries deals with like the face, the sinuses, anything connecting to the forehead. It also is strongly connected to male energies, so it can be bringing up themes of, like I said, wounded, veterans, issues with masculinity, problems connecting to male reproductive, kind of health themes, and anything that deals with also head injuries, concussions, cuts, burns, bruises, abrasions. We can see more of that stuff that can kind of happen under this particular full moon. Now, all in all, what this is really saying to me is that it could exaggerate wounds revolving around feeling like we belong, or maybe with, the moon approaching a conjunction to Chiron and a square to Jupiter, where we should be living, or our place in society, or whether or not we have a home, or whether or not we feel like we are the black sheep in the family. Certainly that could be a theme that can be coming up, dealing with family and root issues, ancestral issues, and stuff connected to the homeland. So, I do think that there's going to be emotional revelations about past hurts. It can help foster compassion, and it's really about turning pain into your own personal strength. Now, as that moon is approaching a square to Jupiter, it is a little wide. It's about 9 degrees, but it is coming into that square. It's going to be showing us that, it's intensifying, the day after the full moon, and it's going to be bringing up emphasized conflicts between independence through Aries moon and emotional expansion through Jupiter in Cancer. But Jupiter is connected to the moon. So it means that we're kind of navigating, growth, and we're trying to do that without feeling overwhelmed by all of the emotional change. You factor that in with the fact that Jupiter is still in a square with Chiron, and this has been recently, I think, a really tight challenge between healing self-assertion and also abundant nurturing. And it's kind of like, okay, are we soft parenting? Are we doing soft relationshiping? Or are we, kind of full force, hey, this is the problem, and addressing issues head on? So it definitely, brings up, I think, global or personal breakthroughs that can be happening in therapy, right? Or when it comes to justice-related matters. It really means that it's about expanding healing through, empathic action and taking, I think, responsibility for, where we have kind of done things wrong in the past and correcting it, because Cancer is connected to the past. Now, Venus is conjunct that South Node, which, we're going to feel the days revolving around the full moon, that's it, I've had enough of this, I don't love this job, or, my partner and I are having issues, or it can materialize as just not getting that sweet spot kind of hit the way that we would like it to. And I think that this is going to be bringing up, obviously Venus being a love and money planet, it's meeting this point of release. So it's purging outdated relationships, it's purging outdated values. We're releasing this feeling of I need to be perfect, or maybe service-oriented attachments, spreading ourselves too thin, working too hard. And this is about letting go of critical relationships or financial habits. And it means that we're going to be getting some kind of karmic closure for a healthier sense of worth. Now, with Venus approaching her opposition to Saturn, it's about 6 degrees away, but you'll see this in the days to follow. This is also going to be bringing up some relational issues. And when Venus is starting to come into opposition with Saturn, she'll be re-triggering that most recent September 21st solar eclipse. So this building tension between, practical affection, Venus in Virgo, right? The sacrifices we make for relationships, pets for work, and kind of clashing with, Saturn retrograde in Pisces, are we too idealistic? Are we too generous? Do we have lack of boundaries? Are we too open? And it's going to manifest as, I think, a relational test point, which all full moons in either Aries or Libra do. That always happens. I think this one's actually a little bit more difficult because individuals are getting to a point where they're kind of wearing thin of just the same old problems in certain relationships, and they have more oomph to kind of go their own way. Now, we will see some tests or some limits in relationships or finances. I think that we can see some people that are going to get to this point and they're going to go, okay, I'm going to step up. I'm going to make that serious commitment. And we're also going to see other people who are going to say, you know what, this isn't working for me, and that's a wrap, and we're going to see endings. And ultimately, I think it's really about building enduring love with Venus in opposition to Saturn if we can be realistic, if we can be authentic, if we can actually, do the necessary work. And Venus conjunct the South Node means we're really more inclined to let go. But because it's in Virgo, it may mean that we're really having to look at staying and trying to fix things and trying to fix people and, trying to kind of wear ourselves too thin is actually a disservice to ourselves. And we're going to see that that creates that wounding or that issue with us. You guys have heard me say in the past that the beauty of, I think, the Aries kind of Libra axis is that you have to really be whole. You have to be aware of who you are. You have to love yourself. You have to take care of yourself. You have to heal yourself to be 100% to meet someone halfway. And we know that people aren't perfect. We all have our flaws. And certainly, I think Libra season kind of teaches us that the right relationships can weather the storm. But more importantly, we're not going to be 100% every day. And so it is also going to highlight and start to show us where other people can actually show up and they can support us as long as it's a relationship that's in balance. Now, Venus will be in a sextile to Jupiter. I guess that's one of the real only positive aspects to this particular lunation. And these are the two benefics, okay? So even though, obviously Venus is not very strong in Virgo and she's breaking down on the South Node, that sextile to Jupiter in its exaltation in Cancer is actually pretty sweet. So this is a harmonious kind of flow between the two planets, and it's for, more abundance, better nurturing connections. It can mean that, we could see some lucky social or financial opportunities that can happen. It could also bring some kind of joyful expansion in our home or in our love life, or in this case, in the organization of our home, the way things are flowing, how we're kind of getting assistance with stuff at work. And obviously, we've got Mercury that is in a gnarly square to Pluto, very similar to what is happening at the end of September as Mars went into a square with Pluto, which if you guys are watching this, it hasn't happened yet. It's going to happen tomorrow. It happened yesterday. So it happened yesterday, so you guys are still feeling that energy. So with Mercury coming into a square with Pluto, this is an interesting dynamic because the way out is to look at the inconjunct and also look at the inconjunct here, that yod, okay, which I think is going to be like shocking information. And like anybody who has an Aries moon, or if you have Aries in the 4th house, if you happen to be like a Capricorn rising, that moods come on very quickly, right? We can be a little like feisty and kind of temperamental, and sometimes our moods get the best of us. But when this comes through with Mercury square Pluto, I think that this is really kind of saying, okay, on one hand, there is a clash between probing thoughts and power struggles. It could spark investigative breakthroughs. It could spark conflicts. There could be information that is released that people get angry or upset about. There could be some kind of data breach. There could also be more information revolving around, the data and the information, particularly financial or sensitive private information that could be online. That could make people very angry. And I think it could also be information revolving around technology and like genes, like anything connected to DNA. So I think about people who have put their information out there and done genetic testing, or they're doing some of those like 23andMe type of things. So there can be some information about that and how maybe it's kind of putting people in a position where, they're a little bit more vulnerable because there's companies coming up and buying some of those companies that are now going to have some of that sensitive kind of genetic information. That's just one example. But I think that, the finger of fate, where Mercury is the focal point between Uranus and Gemini, Neptune and Aries, means that, Mercury and Mars are serving up a cold hard facts. Like they're bringing stuff to the surface that's like, yeah, you're going to get angry and you don't want to talk about it, or you don't want to address the elephant in the room, or you don't want to know and you've been kind of out of sight or out of mind. But now some of this stuff is coming up and it needs to be dealt with. And it's all coming into a square with Pluto on the right-hand side. So it's going to kind of rile the collective a little bit. It's also going to be, I think, addressing some stuff that has been kind of like hitting in the shadows. And the positive is that it's really pointing towards adjustments towards deep communication. And Mercury has to kind of integrate where we've been asleep, Neptune retrograde, and also, expect some surprising news, the inconjunct Uranus retrograde. So it's amazing for intuitive insights amid, what can feel like a lot of confusion or a lot of smoke and mirrors. And it can mean that there's faded revelations in secrets or tech, and it's requiring our sense of awareness. Now, yes, I think that we'll see power struggles in communication, and we can see some conflicts and some fights and people that are getting kind of squirrely, and, the online chat rooms and the things where people are posting, and obviously on social media. But it's happening because Mercury is going in and it's saying, okay, I'm gonna unearth these truths, and they need to come out for collective, awareness and for collective evolution. And yeah, that's gonna piss some people off for sure. Now, this is all happening obviously in early October, so some of the stuff that's starting to unfold around the full moon can be things that are connected to the events, the end of September, be that the eclipses or some of the Mars square Pluto or whatever. I would just say watch and try to lean more into Mars and Scorpio. We want to understand Mars and Scorpio to kind of get what's going on with this Aries full moon. Both Aries and Scorpio are ruled by Mars. The difference is that Aries is going to shoot from the hip, and it's going to react, it's going to confront, it's going to be combative, it's going to be the first, it's going to fight. And it's fast, but it burns up overly quickly. Mars in Scorpio is a totally different energy. Scorpio in general is the more feminine nature of Mars. So it's passionate, it's sexual, it's connected to things that are secretive, it's connected to things that are dealing with the underworld. It is very strategic. It's very art of war. So it knows that Aries is gonna burn itself out, and while it's burning itself out, it is going to start to build up momentum and power, and also money. So I see this as the darker side with Mercury and Mars, where, you know, if everybody is collectively at odds with this opposition, they're burning themselves out, they're getting worn down, there's less togetherness, there's less unity. And also there's a lot of money to be made on what? War. And that's what Mars is connected to. So with Mars being at 10 degrees of Scorpio, let's see what that Sabian symbol is. So that would be for 11 degrees, because there's going to be a message there somewhere. And I haven't even really looked at it. So, okay, Scorpio 11, a drowning man rescued. The keyword is safety. Sink or swim. The symbol speaks to a tremendous love of life and a desire to re-experience those moments that have been most memorable and pleasurable. The emphasis here is living life to the fullest and having the courage to continue towards goals, even when it seems that there's no chance at succeeding. The image of a drowning man rescued suggests an unexpected assistance in an emergency crisis. The implication here is that the individual keeps his faith and refuses to be beaten by life, or even apparent tragedy or stroke of bad luck can turn out to be a fortuitous event through which he eventually profits. I'm going to put a pin in that. On a practical level, this can symbolize rescue from the situation where someone is in over his head, or where though some accident of chance, seemingly enjoyable or ordinary undertaking takes a perilous turn. This image might reflect a situation where a person risks his own life or position to save another. At its highest, it represents the ability to survive the most challenging situations of life from the refusal to give up and accept defeat. Watch for foolish risk-taking or putting others at risk through irresponsible actions. The action is on survival. You could receive an unexpected help in the 12th hour, or just when you had nearly given up. Your greatest advantage lies in holding on to help until help arrives. Keep your mind's eye what you still hope to achieve and what means the most to you. Guard against abandoning hope and quitting in despair. Don't lose your composure or cause yourself unnecessary harm by making it hard for others to help you. Cooperate under an Aries full moon. Never. Stepping stones, emergency, survival, rescue, assistance, support, sentiment, help, deliverance, salvation, liberation, and recovery. I love that whole, like, well, I guess I should be specific if I'm going to quote this, but it was talking about when things start breaking down. Let's see, what was it? The implication, there we go. A stroke of bad luck can turn out to be fortuitous, even though which he will eventually profit. Guys, as Mars has been in a square with Pluto, as Mercury comes into a square with Pluto, you're going to hear a lot of people that are going to go, oh my God, the market, you know, and full moons can be tops. I'm not really talking so much about the market right now, but, you know, all these people get wealthy because of the swings, right? Everything just goes to like crisis mode and things break down. And then what? You see lots of people jump in and then it's manipulated and then it goes back up. So I could see some people kind of freaking out over things connected to Scorpios. So whether it's 401k, if it's connecting to retirement accounts, if we hear more about the drama connection to age of retirement, Social Security, and, you know, it is at a 10, so it is going to be dealing with government-related things or leadership or some kind of crisis over changes and transformations with leadership. That's for sure going to happen. You will see that. So I, for one, am very interested to see how this is going to play out. Just to kind of give you guys this refresher, this is the eclipse that it's connecting to. It was this one. There we go, this one. March 29, 2025. Okay, so we had a solar eclipse at 9 degrees of Aries. And back then, Mars, that ruler, was in Mars was in Cancer. So we weren't really getting a lot of support. We were in the midst of a Mercury retrograde, a Venus retrograde. Neptune was about to go into Aries, Saturn was about to go into Aries. I look at this and I'm like, you know what? The one thing that I am proud of, just on a personal level, is like looking at all of the things that have happened since that eclipse 6 months ago and being like, okay, cool, still standing. Like, yes, there's been some turbulence and there has been some challenges. We've all had that, but it's kind of looking at it being like, all right, like didn't give up, didn't fail, didn't get out when things got too hard. And now it's going to be how things can actually change. And we may actually be able to go deeper into some of those levels of, change and transformation, be that personal, psychological, spiritual, financial, because we did not give up. So give yourself some credit where credit is due. That's something that I would say, okay? Let's look at the full moon and how this is going to be impacting the 12 rising signs. I do talk about this a little bit in my October horoscope, so if you guys haven't seen that, definitely check those out. But as a reminder, I am a Western astrologer. I'm not a Vedic astrologer. I like to use Western. I will be using the whole sign, rising sign prediction method. So I do recommend listening to your rising sign first. That's going to tell you exactly which area of your chart the full moon is taking place in. It's going to be helpful in kind of navigating, okay, where is kind of the culmination going to be taking place? But also, it's a moon, right? It's a lunation. So listen to your moon sign because that will definitely impact you emotionally. And listen to your sun sign to see how this is going to be impacting you when it comes to your career and your overall kind of joy and vitality. Listening to all three is going to give you more insight. And if you happen to be a Placidus user like I am, that's what I use in my personal private practice, listen or look for which house is going to be 14 degrees of Aries. So you may have to listen to more than one sign, especially because this is going to be smack dab pretty much in the middle of the Libra degrees, okay? So choose your own adventure, rising, sun, and moon. And we're going to first kind of start off with, Aries and Aries rising. So what's up, Aries? How's it going? Rising, suns, moons. I'm with you in that. I'm an Aries moon. I'm excited to see this full moon for us. I think that in many ways, this is almost going to feel like a graduation of sorts, right? I know Saturn and Neptune are still coming back into your sign. You're going to see that next year, but this is really to look at what's happened since you had all of those eclipses that were taking place in your sign over the last several years. Now you're having this full moon lunar eclipse in your first house. If you're in Aries, sun, moon, rising, particularly the risings are what I'm kind of speaking to, but if you have anything 13, 14, 15 degrees, this is going to be very personal for you, right? The first house is your identity, right? It's how you look, how you dress, how you carry yourself. It's your body, it's your energy, your vitality. It's also going to be very much connecting to, Mars, which is the ruler of this, and it happens to be your ruler too, which is just hanging out in the 8th house. So, Mars likes being in the 8th house. It can function well there. It can heal very quickly there. There could be lots of psychological healing. There could be healing that could be post-surgery. There could also be a lot of action that's kind of going on there regarding transformation, right? Intimacy, shared resources, taxes, debts. So when you have the full moon in your first house, yes, some Aries and Aries risings are going to be wearing their emotions on their sleeve. That's pretty much expected. And those emotions are stemming from a combination of, the actions or the interactions with others, opposition to Leo, Sun, which rules Leo, your 5th house. So this could be creative collaborators, children, romantic relationships, and also the fact that Mars is in your 8th house. So pregnancy, big changes to your appearance, personal reinvention, releasing old kind of self-images and identities. I'm predicting for a lot of you guys breakthroughs in confidence and, possibly you could see some intense kind of intimate revelations that are kind of coming up. And I think some Aries and Aries risings are going to be going through psychological or surgical or purging, detoxification kind of related themes because Mars is in the 8th house. My advice is to really watch for the breakthroughs that I think are going to come through in your confidence. I think that this may bring up some intense, intimate interactions. But by the same token, because you're willing to purge and release some of these old kind of outdated versions of you, it can be regenerative in a way. And I would really recommend for many of you guys to just focus on affirming your words. I think that's going to be a big theme. Obviously avoiding power struggles and really taking time to yourself and doing things or being active or, focusing on, kind of looking at some of the goals that you have set up over the last 6 months and being like, okay, what have I completed? How can I give myself credit for that? How is that psychologically and spiritually transform me? And what else do I still have to do? Because you still have work to do. Saturn and Neptune are going to come back into your sign next year. So this is a good check-in point between now and then. Now, I know a lot of the tension is going to be around personal healing and how you show up in relationships with others. It can also be some of these growing pains that are kind of going on the home front. Aries, let me know what happens. Very curious, and I'm wishing you guys good luck. For my Taurus and Taurus risings, you guys are going to experience a full moon that'll be taking place in Aries in your natal 12th house. And Taurus, this is a much quieter part of your chart, so it's going to be a little bit behind the scenes. The 12th house is subconscious. It is about endings. It is about your bedroom, sleep, meditation, your dreams. This is also about kind of clearing things out that have been maybe kind of creeping around for a little bit. This is a house that also deals with alone time. So meditation, reflection, being alone in nature, and anything connecting to healing is definitely the 12th house as well. Now, when we think about this full moon taking place there in connection to Mars being the ruler in the 7th house, there's one thing I'm going to tell you. It's that Taurus, you can't keep quiet anymore. There are some things going on that are kind of that you've been sitting on or marinating on. And now it's like they have to come out and you have to address them because Mars is in your 7th house, which is going to deal with spouses, open enemies, conflicts, business. It's almost like you're being thrusted into a situation where you have to actually engage with others, or you have to kind of stand up for yourself, or you're going to kind of, go back and forth with people a little bit. Likely you're feeling this leading up to the full moon anyway with Mars square Pluto. And a lot of it is in regards to public relationships, I think. And maybe you're wanting to kind of be hidden, or you're wanting to stay away and you're trying to kind of keep there from being conflict. I think that the themes of this full moon is hidden emotions resurfacing and spiritual release. I also think that some of the themes of a full moon in your 12th house are going to be about closure that you get in isolation, relational insecurities, where you're hiding away from, dealing with things and hashing it out. It can actually become a bigger problem. And at the time of the full moon, your ruler, Venus, is coming into a kind of conjunction, actually leading up to the full moon. So, I could see this as for some of you that you're seeing that there's some intense relational things that finally have to be dealt with. And I would advise you to focus on meditation and getting some inner peace, and also setting boundaries when it comes to close bonds, and like knowing when it's time to kind of take a step back if there's too much intensity that's going on with your closest one-on-one relationships. Full moons in the 12th house, we need rest, we need recuperation, maybe we need more sleep, and that can be agitating or disrupting, or bringing up people who are getting agitated because they can't get a hold of you, or you're not responding, or you don't want to talk, or you want to sleep in a separate bedroom, And there is going to be a need to address some of this stuff. You can't hide out forever. So keep that in the back of your mind. Good luck. All right, we've got Gemini and Gemini rising. You guys are going to be experiencing this full moon in the sign of Aries in your natal 11th house. Now, Gemini, the 11th house deals with your friendships, groups, allies, networks, people online, your dreams, your goals, and like wish fulfillment, and anything kind of connected to your social life. So seeing a full moon here definitely lights this up in a very big way, where you're going to find yourselves in dynamics where you're either going to parties, you're working with groups on, stuff at work. There could definitely be a lot of like networking opportunities and things that are kind of coming in. And this is in a sign that's pretty friendly with you. Air and fire gets on pretty well, so it's not too challenging. Now, Mars is the ruler of this full moon, and Mars is actually situated in the 6th house with Mercury. Mercury is your chart ruler, so it tells me that your mind, your actions are on your day-to-day routines. So as it's going through the 6th house of work and health, maybe you're having to maybe do group fitness classes. Maybe you're working out with friends because you've got a tight schedule, and that's one of the ways that you can spend time with them and kind of kill two birds with one stone. Maybe it means that you're really taking action to kind of clean up your schedule so you have more time for social interactions. It could also mean that it's really difficult, focusing on balancing your health and your schedule and meeting the needs of other people. But all in all, the themes are going to be about community culminations, aspirational releases, and shifts in networks, and possibly work-related power plays that could be coming up. So yes, my tips are network boldly, prioritize wellness routines, but also, take the necessary actions to focus on and prioritizing getting your work done, staying on top of everything, managing your schedule so you can make time to do some of the things that's going to be more kind of socially, I think, appealing rather than just working and working out. Good luck, Gemini. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. You guys are going to be experiencing a full moon taking place in the sign of Aries in your natal 10th house. Now, being somebody who's ruled by the moon, the lunations are very significant for you. And this is nothing to kind of scoff at, obviously, especially if you have anything around, I would say, 13, 14, 15 degrees of Cancer, sun, moon, or rising, as the moon is going to be squaring that. But even, mid to late degrees of Cancer or Cancer risings, because Jupiter is in your sign, you guys are influenced by the moon through Jupiter being there more so than usual. So you're going to be feeling the effects of this moon probably a day before, the day of, and the day after. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now, a full moon that's taking place in the 10th house is bringing all of the attention to you in the workplace. So if you are working, if you have a job, if you own a business, if you are, a business partner with somebody in collaboration, or let's say you're wanting to launch a business, you're wanting to go for a job interview, maybe there is a big meeting that you're going to have. And if you're not working, it can be just your identity out in the world. Are you a husband? Are you a mom? It can also be parental things, your relationship to parents, or taking care of, your family. And also being bold and being independent, what you're doing outside of some of these kind of identities that you have. Now, the full moon here obviously is going to be about your career and your reputation. So with the tie-in to Mars rulership in your 5th house, a lot of this speaks to your responsibility for a creative business, right? If you have your own business, your responsibility to your own happiness, your responsibility to your children or to your romantic partners. And obviously the 5th house could be romance, children, or creativity. So we tie that all together looking at the full moon, and it's about public achievements and like authority matters kind of coming up and coming to the surface, which has been a big theme for you recently with some of the eclipses and also, Saturn and Neptune in this sign. I think about how this is squaring Jupiter, and this can mean that it can make you more emotional about the fact that you have to kind of take on more responsibilities. It can also put you in a position of having to travel more, having to teach more, having to, shift something about your beliefs because your work habits and health and routine, as well as travel and education, are a part of it. So some of you guys are like, I'm going to school so I can change my career. Maybe some of you are saying, hey, I have to really prioritize my health and be more assertive so I can get more work done. Others, it just represents just better time management and being a little bit more enthusiastic and like looking at it positively about some of the changes that's coming in your career life. So yes, I do predict that there is going to be, opportunity for public achievement and career peaks. And, I think passionate creativity is going to serve. You're going to see lots of creative things that are going to start kind of coming up. So really this is a time to kind of step into a leadership role and like channel, some of this in a much more optimistic way, or maybe you're channeling, managing or dealing with children more constructively. Maybe you're channeling a creative, a new romantic relationship in a more assertive way. And you're kind of telling somebody exactly what it is you want. So that way you feel like there is going to be more development in your relationships as well. Okay. Good luck to my Cancer and Cancer risings. Let me know what happens. All right, we've got Leo and Leo rising. You guys are going to do this full moon in Aries taking place in a fellow sister fire sign in your natal 9th house. Now, if you happen to have anything 14, 15, 16 degrees of Leo, this will be trining you. So I do think it's going to be friendly in that regard. But obviously, when we have a full moon, the moon is opposing the sun, which is your ruler. So it likely can bring up some things unexpectedly because the moon rules your 12th house that you don't see coming. The full moon in the 9th house is generally a time where there is just a huge focus on your beliefs, okay? Travel, you might be at an airport, you might be, planning a trip, or maybe you're on a trip. It can be a time when you're taking a course or doing a certification, dealing with legal matters, or publishing something, or meeting with a teacher or a mentor of some kind. Now, this is a full moon that's ruled by Mars, and Mars is sitting at the bottom of your chart and it's hanging out in Scorpio, which is another fixed sign. So I look at this and I'm like, oh my gosh, so many Leo or Leo risings are like, that's it, I want to move, I want to get out of here. Or maybe there's like an estate matter where you're going back and forth with somebody legally. There can also be a sense of you looking at traveling and getting out of the house to go and look at places that you may consider moving in a later point. There can be back and forth you're doing with in-laws. And there can also just be the sense of being like, I need to get out of the house. I need to go on a trip. Because there can be a lot of pressure that's kind of been brewing, having had Mars in the 4th house. So you're ready to kind of get out. So when we put it all together, philosophical expansion, releasing old, outdated beliefs, maybe learning something new, or maybe some of you guys are, going to be graduating or you're going to be traveling. But it's all about having adventure insights, I think, with this full moon. And also there can be a lot of intense things that are kind of going on with your family. So explore new ideas, obviously try to nurture your roots without control, get out of the house if you can. And if you were thinking about kind of going and looking at new places to explore that you may call home, that might be a part of the full moon for you. Good luck. We've got Virgo and Virgo rising. You guys are going to be experiencing the full moon in Aries in your natal 8th house. Virgo, this is a house that is kind of hidden in the shadows, and it's in a sign that in conjuncts or quincunxes you. So some unusual or peculiar things can kind of happen when you have planets go through Aries, and it does bring on some kind of profound self-reevaluation or some kind of rebirth energy, because that's what the 8th house is all about. Shared intimacy, resources, death and endings, new beginnings, regenerative energies, and also kind of tapping into your spidey senses. Now, when this particular full moon comes through, it's going to be happening around 14 degrees of Aries. So if you have anything around 13, 14, 15 degrees of Virgo, and to some extent, I would say even the in conjunct that's happening to the South Node, is it's going to be showing you where there is this need to really fully embrace change. And a lot of this is not just because it's in the 8th house. It's also because the opposition to the sun, which rules your 12th house, is saying there's about to be some unforeseen or unexpected changes that could be happening. And that could be in yourself, that could be with your finances, that could be with your relationships. At the time of this full moon, Mars is the ruler, and it's going to be sitting in your 3rd house, which deals with communication, the mind, and anything revolving around short distance travel, dealing with siblings, or with neighbors. Mercury, your chart ruler, happens to be in the same sign. And so something I think about is that you're going to have a bit of a sharp tongue during this particular full moon. There may be a sense of wanting to say something or wanting to discuss something, and there's some really deep emotions and feelings that are kind of coming up. And Mercury will be in a square with Pluto, so likely a lot of the communication that you have in regards to your day-to-day schedule, maybe communicating and talking to other coworkers, maybe some intense exchanges you can have with people who are supposed to be helping you. So I think of like assistants or people who are hired help. You could also be feeling like a lot of immense kind of mental pressure revolving around communicating, things that you've been wanting to say, but you've been maybe kind of holding back a little bit. So kind of putting it all together, I feel like that, and also like the South Node Venus stuff here is kind of saying like you feel maybe a little dissatisfied, and now it's starting to come to the surface, and you're feeling like it's time for you to kind of talk about this and have this really emotional, transformative release. And what are you changing, right? Maybe you're changing something about the way that you talk to yourself. Maybe you're renegotiating a contract. Maybe it means that there's about to be a change with a vehicle. And so that could mean that you're paying something off, or you're taking out a loan, or money that's somehow kind of connected to education. But if there's one thing I know, there will be a transformative release. And this is also about kind of debt and emotional depths that are coming up. I do predict that there will be financial or psychic breakthroughs, but also some intense conversations. It is important to go there even though it's uncomfortable. And this is about building trust or vulnerability and speaking your truth mindfully. Good luck, Virgo. For my Libras and Libra risings, you guys are going to be experiencing a full moon in Aries taking place in your natal 7th house. If you happen to have anything around 13, 14, 15 degrees of Libra, this is going to be opposing you. So that means that it's right around the time of your birthday, and you'll be having a full moon around your birthday if you're a Libra sun. So happy full moon birthday to you. It means that this is a big year of major conclusions and completion. So definitely get your solar return chart looked at. But for any Libra placements, this is, polar to you, okay? So you're dealing with other people whenever you're dealing with the seventh house or seventh house to your sun. And the seventh house is about relationships. It is about your counselors, your astrologers, your therapists. It can be connecting to your spouses. Also, your business, if you have a client-based business, this is where, you're able to kind of sell goods and transact with other people. So it's bringing the attention to others off the bat in aspect to you. So with the sun going through your sign, if you're Libra rising, you are being seen, you're lighting up in some way, or you're taking some kind of action, or maybe you're focusing on balance and diplomacy. And it's going to be kind of complementary to this moon that's in your seventh house. Even though it's in Aries, the seventh house is about unions with other people. Other people are going to be a little spicy. I think that's what I would kind of anticipate. Now, something to think about is that at the time of this full moon, the ruler Mars is actually going to be situated in the sign of Scorpio. So it's going to be moving through your second house, which deals with values. It also deals with finances, self-esteem, spending money, personal possession. So the themes of this full moon, if you have a full moon in your seventh house, you see partnership culmination. You see, balance reassessments going on in relationships. Some, strong partnerships will come together and they will have more of kind of like a solidified union, and they're going to be a strong force. Engagements, getting married, business, that's being done, or partnerships that are being developed are very possible under this full moon. And it does look like money is going to be on your mind with Mars being in the second house. So there's a lot of like, well, okay, we've got this, focus on the relationship building. What is this going to do for me? What is this giving me? Is this giving me emotional security? Is this giving me financial security? And there can definitely be also some tension that can come up in relationships over money, spending money, resources, and ownership of certain things. Now, at the time of this full moon, Venus, your chart ruler, is going to be conjunct the South Node in your 12th house in Virgo. So it tells me that you're kind of like looking for a safe space to hide. You're looking for some alone time, or maybe you're not feeling well, or you're feeling a little disgruntled, or you're feeling a little isolated. And a full moon in the seventh house is the time to really look at who you're closest to and whether or not people are showing up for you, and literally the second house could be, are you sick? Are they bringing you soup, right? Are you going through something where you're not feeling, as good about yourself, and somebody pays you a compliment, or they bring you flowers, things that seem silly, but pay attention to how other people show up and what they're actually kind of bringing to the relationship, because you're going to be really seeing whether or not your relationships are rock solid and something worth holding on to, or if it's time to let go. I do think that I would look at this as a period of relational turning points, and, worth-related powers will come up. I advise you to assert your needs and secure your resources strategically. Think about some of the lessons that you have learned recently with the eclipses in your seventh house, the retrogrades in your seventh house, Saturn and Neptune in your seventh house. Certainly the seventh house can be about building and bridging some of the gaps in relationships and building more harmony. But it's also going to be about being very clear about what your expectations are if you're going to be in a relationship with another person. Good luck. All right, we've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. What's up, Scorpios? We're doing a full moon in Aries in your natal sixth house. And this will be happening in a sign that inconjuncts or quincunxes you, but you're still kind of a part of this because, well, Mars is your ruler too. You and Aries are connected to Mars, and Mars is in your sign. So having a full moon in your sixth house, Scorpio, is bringing all of the attention to really what has happened in this last year when you think about your work, your health, your habits, and also what sacrifices you are possibly making. Now, it could mean what you're willing to cut out of your diet, what you've been sacrificing yourself for at work, what scheduling changes you have been kind of making. The sixth house is a bit of like a weird house. I think about like having had Saturn and Neptune go through there in this last couple of years, and I'm like, there has definitely been this sense of work, but there's also been this sense of like, well, how much is too much, and like where is that interfering with like my healthy habits and like, my overall well-being? And you're just kind of getting started with some of these transits now. I think that with a full moon here, what you're going to see is that you'll see wellness shifts, personal intensity boosts will happen here as well, especially if you're somebody who over this last year has been like, I'm getting a new job, I'm changing my schedule, I'm eating better, I'm getting back to the doctor, that kind of stuff. If you've been doing those things, likely this can actually start to show you the fruit of all of the hard work and the labor that you've been putting into it. Also, if you're looking for a job, or if you're wanting to change offices, or if you're wanting to kind of see a boost in your schedule, this can be something that can actually come up during this full moon. Now, at the time of the full moon, we do see that Neptune is still in your 6th house. So it is kind of highlighting where you need to be more mindful of your health and your habits, what you're eating, what you're drinking, what you're absorbing. And the moon will be coming into close proximity with Chiron. So I've seen a lot of Scorpio and Scorpio risings that are like having sinus issues, allergy issues, inflammation. They're having digestional issues. They're trying to stop drinking. They're trying to stop drugging. They're trying to, just feel like they are getting into a schedule or routine where they're more productive and more aware. And for a lot of this, Scorpio, you have to be active. Like you have to be moving your body. So that's going to be part of this. Mars is the ruler and it's going to be in your sign. And so I think that that's giving you a little bit of like a leg up on the full moon. Yes, Mars will be in conjunct or quincunx Mars will be in conjunct or quincunx the moon. So it will show you like where some of the moodiness or some of the funk that's coming up is because you're not living a life where you're integrating some of these intuitive changes that you need to make with your schedule. Saturn and Neptune could mean that you actually need to break and go for a walk on your lunch break, or you might actually need to start working at a gym or going in a sauna or incorporating meditation. And with Mars being in your 1st house and it's in it's in its home sign, you will see that, this is about you releasing a sense of service and also paying better attention to yourself. So you'll see wellness shifts, personal intensity boosts, more kind of power, more charisma also for getting the job done, and really focusing on your overall sense of well-being. But focus on your health, because when you have a full moon in the 6th house, there can be health results. So there can be accidents that can happen. 6th house is accidents. And Mars in your sign is, okay, well, are you rushing through something? Are you dealing with cuts? Are you dealing with fevers? Are you have some kind of inflammation you're trying to tackle? And recently Mars has been square Pluto. So you're also feeling really pushed and under the gun to like get a home or family situation under control, or to like manage a move, or to deal with major changes in your private life. So in order to do that, you have to do 6th house things. You have to be really focusing on refining your habits and also harnessing your drive without burning yourself out. So hopefully that's helpful, Scorpio. Let me know what happens. We've got Sag and Sag rising. You guys are going to experience a full moon taking place in the sign of Aries in your natal 5th house. If you happen to have anything at 14, 15, 16 degrees, I would say 13 through 16 degrees of Sagittarius, this is going to be trining, so it'll be friendlier for you in that regard because it's in a fellow sister fire sign. However, the moon is still slightly coming into a square with Jupiter in Cancer in your 8th, so you're going to be very emotional about some of the changes that might be kind of coming up when it comes to 5th house themes: children, pregnancy, romantic relationships, inner joy, inner child stuff. Now, a full moon in the 5th house, honestly, is a great full moon. This is generally bringing your attention to creative self-expression, pregnancy, your relationship with children, taking risks, having fun, date nights, and all of those things can be kind of coming up. So having this full moon here, I think, is actually pretty friendly. I do think you might be very, like I said, emotional about some of the things that are coming up. And this can be some of the change or transformation that might be happening with your home, with your family, and also putting you in a position of having to go beyond just surface level relationships. It's about developing deeper bonds, being vulnerable, and kind of opening yourself up to being, I think, a little bit more willing to make changes on the home front. And this could be financial changes with a partner. This could be psychological changes revolving around changes with your family. And at the time of the full moon, Mars is the ruler, and it's going to be hanging out in your 12th house, which is kind of hidden, and Mercury is there too. So there is like this sense of kind of combating or like dealing with subconscious fears or things that are unresolved, like hangups that you have in, getting your heart broken, issues that are connected to, maybe your inner child and being vulnerable and like being open to love again. Maybe past hurts or haunts that are kind of keeping you from, being more self-expressive. And I would say the themes of a full moon here are definitely romantic and creative culminations. And this is about fun releasing. So it is possible some of you guys are finding that there are romantic connections taking place behind the scenes, or opportunities to kind of travel and be connecting with foreigners, or maybe having some romantic getaways. Certainly that could be another kind of way of looking at this. But I'm expecting for a lot of my Sag risings, like, okay, Sagittarius full moon in the 5th house, you have an amazing, romantic date and you meet somebody you're really crazy about, or you launch a creative project or it comes to fruition. You are really proud and you maybe are getting ready to release some like creative project that you've been working on behind the scenes, and now you're ready to show it to the world. Also, it can mean that there is some brewing, theme revolving around children. So whether you have kids, it's about your kids, or it can be connected to a pregnancy. Some Sag and Sag risings may actually find this happening in the next couple of weeks. But passion expressions, hidden motives that are revealed. This is about playing boldly and also reflecting on the inner shadows that kind of keep us from being raw and authentic when it comes to matters of the heart. Good luck, Sag. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You guys are going to experience a full moon taking place in the sign of Aries, and this will be happening in your natal 4th house. Capricorn, if you have any placements that's between 13 and about 15 or 16 degrees, you are completing what is going to be a more or less, you're going to see like a grand cardinal cross. So it's the Capricorns that we really need to be watching, not just the Aries. Capricorn, the 4th house, the moon is at home here, right? The moon likes to be in the 4th house. It's about coming back home. So having a full moon in the 4th house is dealing with home, property, parents, roots, roommates, certainly major conclusions revolving around finishing homes, moving, selling homes, dealing with one of your parents, and obviously kind of dealing with matters of the heart and things that are kind of behind the scenes at home. So it's who you are when nobody's looking. This is a really big theme for Capricorn and Capricorn risings. You guys have had Saturn here this year, so you got a small taste of this, and a lot of you guys have actually moved back home. I've heard from a lot of you. Or you have finally picked up and relocated somewhere new, or some of you guys are taking care of parents. Certainly that's part of the responsibility in the 4th house. Or you are finally getting your first apartment. Maybe you guys are finally, moving out of your parents' house, or you're moving to a foreign land. But that's been a huge theme, having had Saturn, your chart ruler, in this part of the chart. So I want you to think about what's been happening over the last year when it comes to your home base. Because I'm predicting that, yes, you will see home and family emotional peaks. You're going to see that there is some foundational releases. But I'm also anticipating that this is a time where you finally start to feel settled in what now feels like your new home. So if you've been moving, maybe you're finally unpacked. If you have moved recently, maybe you're finally kind of getting the lay of the land and you're like, okay, I know where everything is. I like it here. Some of you guys are going to be seeing major home and family events. And I say that because the ruler of this particular full moon is Mars, and Mars is located in Scorpio in your 11th house. So I'm thinking like family reunions, big birthday parties, people getting married, people having housewarming parties. Some of your goals revolving around your home and family are big, or maybe you are hosting some kind of event in your home. So any of these things are possible under this particular full moon. I do think that it's going to be really colorful to be a Capricorn, especially mid to late degree Capricorn, because that moon represents relationships. So it's about your partner, you and your partner, or your relationship with a family member reaching a peak. And obviously the sun is in the 10th house, so your kind of energy is on what's going on with work, but something is going to kind of get you pulled back home. And I would really just be kind of looking at, okay, is it time to heal an ancestral pattern? Are there some domestic changes that need to be made? Maybe, is it time for me to like focus on the allies maybe that I could have that can kind of help me navigate some of these home or family related things? And also, it's not just the family you were born into, it's the family you make, because Mars is connected to your 11th house of your friends. So you may be feeling you're lacking family if you've moved somewhere new or you're feeling isolated, but it's about going and building that kind of tribe that's going to feel like that's your family and connecting with them as well. Opening your home, opening your doors to them, and finding ways to kind of connect with them in a much more kind of like one-on-one way, right? So hopefully that's helpful for you guys. Let me know what happens. And we've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. What's up, Aquarius? You're doing this full moon in Aries in your natal 3rd house, obviously in a sign that is friendly with you. Air and fire work well together. You're going to see that this is bringing up 3rd house themes. So communication, contracts, learning, cars, siblings, neighbors, short distance trips, right? Wrapping up websites, publishing blogs, focusing on communication and connection, and possibly some really big announcements or some big decisions revolving around your profession. Now, the reason why I say that is because at the time of the full moon, even though it's happening in a communication house, the ruler is actually hanging out up here in your 10th house, which deals with your career, your reputation, your professional life, relationship with bosses, and also your drive when it comes to getting out there and being more assertive or maybe being a little bit more competitive at work. Now, I do think that a full moon in the 3rd house can bring some kind of mental release where you're like, that's it, I finished this book, or I'm done with this course. It can also bring some kind of major culminations when it comes to your neighborhood, dealing with your siblings, maybe some conversations that you're kind of having with other people about what you're trying to wrap up professionally or work-wise. And I do predict for many of you guys, this could actually be amazing for having like a breakthrough with like a new idea. Maybe you're going to find that, professional communication is going to intensify. I would expect that. There can be some really prominent emails, meetings, or discussions that can be had with superiors or people at work. Likely you will see in the 2 months to follow, there's going to be a lot of renegotiations or changes happening professionally. And I think it may actually come as a result of some announcement that is about to be made. The moon deals with your coworkers and also like with your health. So you might be feeling like you're needing to jump in and negotiate or stand up or kind of manage a project at work. Or you might be feeling like this is a time where, it's actually challenging for you to be heard. And you're maybe having to voice some of your concerns with what's going on with scheduling or what's going on with other employees or whether or not you feel up to the task of what needs to be dealt with professionally. Now, Uranus is your ruler. Nothing is really going on other than, I would say, Mercury is squaring Pluto in your sign, and it's also in conjunct Uranus. So it looks like you're trying to find creative ways to kind of navigate some of the stuff that's going on at work. And you're trying to find ways to kind of come up with solutions and be kind of bold and pioneering in how you're communicating and inspiring other people to kind of like support your cause. So definitely express yourself assertively, but this is about pursuing your goals in a way that is going to be about leading other people and not having a kind of combativeness or confrontation when you're dealing with them one-on-one or in the workplace, okay? Good luck. And for my Pisces and Pisces risings, you guys are going to be experiencing a full moon taking place in the sign of Aries in your natal 2nd house. And obviously the 2nd house is going to deal with, 2nd house things, values, possessions, money, payments, security, your confidence and self-esteem. And we see big money stuff happening when you have planets that are kind of moving through this house. So a full moon here is going to bring the attention to what you possess, what you own, or what you're purchasing. So there can be this sense of, reevaluating your self-worth and your financial situation and you're reassessing stuff. You can see money shifts that can happen here. And there can also be a sense of you really investing yourself or financially in something. And to that, I look at where Mars, the ruler, is, and Mars is moving through the 9th. So the 9th house could mean you're investing in travel, you're investing in education, you're investing in talking to professionals like lawyers, doctors, teachers. Maybe you're trying to make money through teaching or traveling, or you're trying to, invest yourself more in your education. Certainly some of you guys will be spending money on either legal matters or traveling. I think that's going to be the 2 things that are going to be coming up. I also could see that this is really about affirming more of your beliefs in yourself and in abundance and feeling like, you're exploring in a very bold way, but maybe doing that without breaking the bank. That's something that I think about with you guys. Obviously, Neptune is your ruler and, you do see that this is a moon that will pass through Neptune before it becomes full. So there's going to be some sense of you going, well, what would it be my dream place to, go to school or travel? Or, am I investing in my dreams or my beliefs? Am I investing in myself? And then when the moon becomes full, just after, in the day to follow, it will square Jupiter in your 5th, which means it's kind of like you going, do I believe I can create this thing? Do I believe I can create love or have a family or start a business? And you're working through this like scarcity mindset, having had Saturn and Neptune in your second house, as to whether or not you can actually achieve it. Well, if you believe it with Mars in the 9th house, you can achieve it. You're probably going to have to invest in learning more, traveling more, or shifting your perspective to make some of these things actually happen. But I think that you can definitely make it happen. And I would be watching for some of the financial kind of fluctuations that are going to be happening around the time of this full moon. Obviously, the sun in the 8th house is talking about what other people kind of bring to the table. And a lot of you guys are on the heels of this most recent solar eclipse in your 7th house. So it's going to be about dealing with resources and what's yours versus what someone else's if you're going through a season of change in your personal one-on-one relationships. So good luck, Pisces. All right, guys. Well, that is the full moon in Aries in a nutshell. It is a spicy one. I'm very curious to see how this manifests. I'm also excited to see this as like a check-in point to see how we've been doing since the solar eclipse earlier this spring. Thank you guys so much for joining me and watching my videos, for giving me a thumbs up and liking and sharing this content, because it really helps the channel grow. Make sure you guys subscribe and stay around for a while, and drop me a comment below and let me know if this resonated with you. What are you guys feeling feisty about? What are you guys expecting? Where is it happening in your chart? I can tell you, as a natal Aries moon, I am ready for it. So I will definitely give you guys all the follow-up on this one after it's passed. I will be here tomorrow. If you guys want to join me, I'm going to be doing live tarot readings at 6:00 p.m. Central Time. That's going to be 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Come and hang out with me and get your cards read, and consider joining my memberships while you're there. For all the information on that, make sure you subscribe and check the community tab and click the details below. You guys can see how to book a personal reading with me. You can take one of my astrology courses, or you guys can check out my personal astrology calendars. Definitely sign up for my newsletter while you're there, because I have all kinds of goodies that I'm getting ready to release in the fall. I'm not going to spoil any of the surprises, but we've got some new products and things we're going to be putting out that I'm very excited for. So if you want to be first on the list to see what we're going to be putting out for 2026, make sure you guys join my newsletter. All right, with that being said, enjoy the full moon. You guys get out of here. I'll see you very soon. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day.